So now when back at the sewing machine, you're going to have to adjust the settings of your machine to be able to get to the zigzag stitch. As we see here in step number 4, it says to zigzag close to the edge of each seam allowance separately. So, to get to that setting for a zigzag stitch, you have to take your stitch type and change it to number 2. This is the zigzag setting. Once you have set it to the zigzag stitch, what you will do is you're going to take the seam allowance that is by itself, not the seam allowance that's laying up against the bag, because if you were to sew or zigzag on this seam allowance that's against the bag, you will be closing and stitching that opening that we left for the drawstring. You'll be stitching it closed, and you will have to come back and seam rip. So make sure you're zigzagging the correct side. So when you place the seam allowance underneath the presser foot, you want to go fairly close to the edge, and with a zigzag stitch, you do not back stitch. So once you've placed it underneath, I hold down on one end, making sure that everything is lined up. Then we start, keeping fairly close as we go along. Remember, with no back stitch, going all the way to the end and going off the fabric. Okay, once you've done that, lift up the presser foot, pull it out, and cut. As you can see, you have a zigzag going all the way down your first seam allowance. Then you always need to make sure that you're cutting all threads, because you will be graded on the look of your project, and we do not leave extra threads on our project. Once you've done that, then we're going to go back to the iron, pressing open our other seam allowance.